Alright, hey YouTube, what's going on, folks? Doing some light reading here on Tuesday night. Hope everybody's doing good. Checking in on the topic of the day this time. Haven't done like a main focus on what's going on out there in the real world in quite some time. But the situation in China, and now really, I guess you could say worldwide, just wanted to comment and throw some my 5 cents of worthless information. I guess I don't know. I'll throw my dimes worth in there maybe, but this coronavirus China spread, possibly coming to the U.S. type stuff going on. People are pretty concerned about it. Not saying you shouldn't be concerned, but always the biggest thing to present and to pressure people is do not act out of fear or emotion, regardless. Get informed. Inform yourself. Pick up, if nothing else, if this thing doesn't turn out to be as bad as it could be or as bad as everybody's dreading. If nothing else, learn how to do some things and learn some things about viruses and diseases and everything else. But also, if you haven't gotten the equipment, which apparently, based upon the results in Amazon and all the shopping places, people didn't have a lot of the proper equipment because there's a run on the store, just like with guns and ammo, just like with everything we talk about on that side of the game. You got to be ahead of the curve, and you got to get things before the panic, and that goes without saying. The same with this case. The N95 masks are disappearing. I don't know how the situation is on bleach, but if you're considering yourself a prepper, you have to consider all scenarios and at least have something. Do not panic buy, ever. I mean, ever. Avoid panic buying at all costs. And again, we go through all our top scenarios, earthquake, flood, hurricane, whatever may affect you, tornado. A pandemic, a disease outbreak should be in your game plan, because you live around humans, you are human. Viruses are everyday part of life. Whether or not they go into an outbreak scenario is to be determined, but having certain things that can help you, and these are not only disease, but they're good for particulate matter after disasters, tornadoes, earthquakes. You're moving debris and stuff like that. These things have lots of uses. It's not just a disease thing, but they are useful in that method too. But with this coronavirus, a lot of people are panicking about the whole thing, but I think the best thing is just be informed and continue to evaluate. But know this too, you have to evaluate and you have to make a decision before you're told what to do. I think one of the key things we have to look at is we're not going to know the right thing to do until it's too late. If that makes sense. With government recommendations and stuff like that, a high probability that you will not get the official word until it's too late, potentially. So you have to make your decision matrix, I guess you'd call it. When do you start wearing or carrying one of these things around? When do you enact disinfectant protocols, whether coming home or in your vehicle or carrying your hand sanitizer around with you religiously, and hand sanitizing yourself just as a precaution? That's something simple. You start wearing a mask around, people are going to start thinking you're crazy, right? So when do you start making those decisions, though, without having to be told? Because if you wait till you're told, you might be behind the power curve. So I would just encourage people to not only evaluate what's going on in the news and what you're told, but look up and do some information gathering and reading on what you can find. Your local library is always going to be a good course of action and a good place to find information. Apparently what we're dealing here is a coronavirus that's of an influenza type strain, similar to what avian flu and the swine flu and everything else. And this doesn't talk about, obviously, this particular coronavirus we're dealing with, but I can read back about avian flu and the swine flu and some of the effects and everything. And everything I'm reading so far tends me to believe that this is much worse of a situation than those cases are. For one, it looks like we have human-to-human transmission without much problem. Whereas in especially avian flu, it's more bird to people. Human to human, very, very difficult and very rare. Whereas this one we're dealing with now has already jumped that shark. Talks about the avian flu in 2013. This is a 2015 book. In 2013, there were 640 human cases of infection. That's like nothing compared to what we're talking about now. So this is much more, seems to be much more spreadable. Is that the right word? Virulent might be the proper terminology. It doesn't spread like the avian. This spreads quicker than the avian flu, but the avian flu had like a 60% mortality rate, if I read that in here right. I don't know that we're quite there yet as far as being that dangerous. So there's different factors here. And one key video I want to point everybody in the direction to as we close it out here. Go check out Full Spectrum Survival and a video they did today about the situation, and just on a lot about getting prepared and a lot about what the virus technical information about how virulent it is and how it spreads between people and the different factors and spread rates and stuff. It's a lot of good information that is very key to understand and to be on the lookout for as these reports come in and as the news reports things. What are they really saying? And what do these numbers really mean when they go, they start doing statistics and stuff for these disease reporting, and understand that stuff. So go check out Full Spectrum Survival's video. It's really good. And he kind of emphasizes too, it's better to be a day early and make your decisions than be a day late. At the beginning of earlier in the year, I talked about this is the year to put plans into action. I didn't think it'd be this early necessarily, but it's acting on plans that you have and acting on the things that you have in place is going to be key to be ahead of the game, and enacting and having something like this on you and with you and doing the things prior to having to being told or to being warned could be very significant in this case. Now, some places are more susceptible than others, obviously, but this thing can get around the world, and it's already around the world, but it can go from one neighborhood to the next, no problem, because we travel so much and people travel around so much. So it might not be out of the realm of possibility that it's already in our neighborhoods, even in rural areas outside of the major cities, which we are concerned about. LA and San Francisco in particular on this side of the country. I had reports, anecdotal, coming from the East Coast, that people are already in airports with masks on in the East Coast. That was and I don't know what's going on the West Coast. I haven't had any reports from there, but people that have visited the East Coast recently in the last week, saying people are already walking around the airport with masks such as this one on their faces, which is interesting because I had not heard any of that on the news or anywhere else. But apparently it's pretty prevailing and pretty common already. So that was a little bit of tidbit information I took to heart, and lets me know that either A, people are taking it really seriously, or they're panicking. I'm not sure which. But obviously travelers at airports come from around the world, and it could be concerning. So I understand the concern, and it doesn't hurt, even though you may be looked at as a social pariah, to put one on. But it's a decision you have to make because nobody's mandating it yet, right? So just want to throw some of those words out there, folks. Look up how to decon and how to clean up after things like this. That's a key thing this book talks about in particular, other than transmission, but prevention, management, patient management. How do you manage a patient? All types of influenza are very similar. What they talk about, preventing the spread of what they call droplet precautions and such things. All good things to know and understand. The decon part of if you think you're contaminated is very critical, because if you are wearing something like this, it does you no good if you don't take it off properly. If you don't take off your, if you have your gloves you're wearing around, or if you're going to decon yourself and you want to put on gloves, or somebody else is putting them on, taking them on and off properly, is important. There's videos out there in the interwebs and YouTube, decontamination. Go check them out. It's very similar to NBC precautions. If those of you were in the military, when you did NBC wash down and stuff, it's very similar. And if you follow that type of mentality, you're going to be all right. Hopefully, for the most part. But get informed, folks. Go out there and find the information. Don't just rely on here on YouTube, of course, because we don't have all the information. There's plenty of other legitimate stuff in writing that is out there that can be found, that's not just propaganda, that's not just there to lead you astray. Don't worry. This is stuff meant to help people and help cure people. So go check it out, whatever you can find, but Full Spectrum Survival's video in particular, I highly recommend. So y'all have a good one. Hopefully we'll see you soon enough without any sick and ill or injured. Live free.